In Game of Thrones, loyalty is rarer than Valyrian steel. The series shocked viewers time and again with jaw-dropping betrayals that changed the fate of Westeros forever. Today, I'm breaking down the 8 most devastating betrayals in Game of Thrones history. Moments where trust was shattered, alliances crumbled, and characters we loved met brutal ends because someone broke their word. I've analyzed every backstab, double-cross, and knife in the dark to rank these betrayals not just by their shock value, but by their impact on the story and the psychological devastation they caused. So let's dive into the treacherous world of Westeros, where keeping your word can get you killed, but breaking it might just win you the throne. The Red Wedding. The Red Wedding stands as the most shocking betrayal in television history. Orchestrated by Tywin Lannister, executed by Walder Frey and Roose Bolton, this massacre violated the sacred guest rite, one of the oldest and most respected traditions in Westeros. Robb Stark had promised to marry one of Walder Frey's daughters in exchange for crossing the twins and military support. When he instead married Talisa Maegir for love, he broke this vow. But the punishment far exceeded the crime. The Freys welcomed the Starks with bread and salt, the traditional symbol of guest protection, then slaughtered them during the wedding feast. What makes this betrayal so devastating isn't just the brutal deaths of Robb, Catelyn, Talisa, and most of the Northern Army. It's the calculated violation of one of the few moral codes that held Westeros together. Even the notoriously ruthless Tywin Lannister didn't directly participate, preferring to keep his hands clean while others did the dirty work. The aftermath reshaped the entire political landscape. The War of the Five Kings effectively ended. The North fell under Bolton control. The Stark cause seemed lost, and a message was sent throughout Westeros. Not even sacred traditions would protect you from Lannister vengeance. Roose Bolton's whispered words to Robb, "The Lannisters send their regards," perfectly encapsulate the cold, calculated nature of this betrayal. It wasn't done in the heat of battle or passion, but meticulously planned over months, making it all the more chilling. Littlefinger's betrayal of Ned Stark. "I did warn you not to trust me." With these words, Petter Littlefinger Baelish cemented himself as one of the most dangerous players in the Game of Thrones. His betrayal of Ned Stark in Season 1 set the tone for the entire series, showing that honor and honesty were liabilities, not strengths in King's Landing. When King Robert died, Ned planned to prevent Joffrey's coronation by revealing the truth about his parentage. Littlefinger promised to secure the City Watch's support for this coup. Instead, he bribed them to turn on Ned, leading to his arrest and eventual execution. What makes this betrayal particularly devastating is that it was completely avoidable. Catelyn Stark had explicitly warned Ned not to trust Littlefinger. Renly Baratheon had offered military support that Ned refused. Even Cersei had given Ned a chance to reconsider his course. But Ned's rigid honor made him predictable, and in Littlefinger's words, a slow learner. The consequences were catastrophic. Ned's execution sparked the War of the Five Kings, a conflict that would kill hundreds of thousands. The Stark family was scattered, and Littlefinger's rise to power accelerated as he was rewarded with Harrenhal and eventually control of the Vale. This betrayal revealed Littlefinger's true character, a man who created chaos to climb the ladder of power regardless of who fell along the way. His seemingly genuine affection for Catelyn made his betrayal of her husband all the more twisted, showing that even love couldn't compete with his ambition. Theon Greyjoy's capture of Winterfell. "Winterfell is mine." With these words, Theon Greyjoy completed one of the most personal betrayals in the series. Raised alongside the Stark children after being taken as a hostage, Theon was treated more like family than prisoner. When Robb Stark trusted him with a diplomatic mission to the Iron Islands, Theon faced a choice between his birth family and the family that raised him. He chose wrong. Instead of bringing Iron Island ships to support Robb's war effort, Theon captured the lightly defended Winterfell while Robb was away fighting. He executed Sir Roderick Castle, who had helped raise him, and faked the deaths of Bronn and Rickon Stark to cement his control. What makes this betrayal so devastating is its intimacy. Theon knew the Starks' weaknesses because he was practically one of them. He exploited Bran's disability, Rickon's youth, and the trust of the Winterfell staff who had watched him grow up. It wasn't just a military betrayal, it was the betrayal of a brother. The consequences were far-reaching. Winterfell was burned. The North was thrown into chaos. And ironically, Theon himself suffered the most severe punishment as his victory led directly to his capture and torture by Ramsay Bolton. His transformation into Reek became one of the most graphic depictions of psychological destruction in television history. Theon's betrayal stands as a perfect example of the series' complex morality. Unlike many betrayers who acted from pure self-interest, Theon was torn between competing loyalties and identities. His attempt to prove himself as a true Greyjoy led to his downfall, and his eventual redemption arc became one of the most compelling in the show, Olly's betrayal of Jon Snow. For the watch. With these words, Olly plunged a knife into Jon Snow's heart, completing the Night's Watch mutiny against their Lord Commander. While several brothers participated in Jon's assassination, Olly's betrayal cut deepest because of their personal relationship. Jon had taken Olly under his wing after wildlings killed the boy's parents. He trained him, mentored him, and treated him like a younger brother. When Jon made the controversial decision to ally with the wildlings, he failed to recognize how deeply this would affect Olly, who couldn't see beyond his personal trauma and hatred. What makes this betrayal particularly tragic is that both sides believed they were doing the right thing. Jon was thinking of the bigger picture, the coming war against the White Walkers, while Olly and the mutineers saw only the immediate threat of their ancient enemies being allowed south of the Wall. It was a betrayal born of fundamentally different worldviews, not just personal ambition. The consequences were momentous. Jon Snow's death, however temporary, marked a turning point in his character development. After his resurrection, he was changed, less idealistic, more pragmatic, and willing to execute those who betrayed him, including Olly. The boy who betrayed him out of misguided loyalty became the first child Jon ever executed, showing how far both had fallen from their initial relationship. This betrayal perfectly encapsulates one of the series' central themes, how cycles of violence and revenge make victims into perpetrators. Olly's parents were killed by wildlings, so he killed the man who allied with wildlings, only to be executed himself. Another link in an endless chain of retribution that Jon was trying to break. Cersei's betrayal at the Dragonpit summit. Where is she? With this question, Jaime Lannister realized his sister and lover had no intention of honoring her promise to send Lannister forces north to fight the White Walkers. Despite seeing undeniable proof of the undead threat, Cersei had lied to everyone, including Jaime, planning instead to let her enemies weaken each other while she consolidated power. This betrayal came at a crucial moment when the survival of humanity itself hung in the balance. Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen had risked everything to capture a White and bring it to King's Landing, temporarily setting aside their war against Cersei to face the greater threat. Tyrion had put his life on the line in a private meeting with his sister. Even Euron Greyjoy's apparent desertion was part of the deception. What makes this betrayal so significant is its scope. Cersei wasn't just betraying her enemies or political rivals. She was betraying all living people by refusing to help against the army of the dead. Her famous line, "When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die," revealed her inability to see beyond the political struggle, even when facing extinction. The consequences were profound. Jaime, who had stood by Cersei through countless atrocities, finally abandoned her. The North and Daenerys faced the Night King with diminished forces, resulting in massive casualties at the Battle of Winterfell. And Cersei's short-sighted focus on immediate enemies rather than existential threats foreshadowed her eventual downfall. This betrayal perfectly captured Cersei's character. Brilliant, but ultimately self-defeating. Her inability to put aside her quest for power, even temporarily, cost her the last person who truly loved her and accelerated her isolation, which would contribute to her eventual defeat. Tyrion's betrayal of Shae. I'm sorry. With these inadequate words, Tyrion Lannister confronted the woman he had once loved, the woman he had just found in his father's bed. Moments later, he strangled Shae with her own necklace in one of the series' most intimate and disturbing acts of violence. The relationship between Tyrion and Shae had been complicated from the start. He was a highborn lord, she a lowborn prostitute. He had warned her about the dangers of King's Landing and his family. Yet when she appeared at his trial for Joffrey's murder and testified against him with cruel lies, something broke inside Tyrion. What makes this betrayal unique is its mutual nature. Shae betrayed Tyrion first by testifying against him and then by sleeping with his father. Tyrion's murder of her was his response to this betrayal. Yet the power imbalance between them raises questions about who truly betrayed whom first. Did Tyrion betray Shae by sending her away for her own protection? Or did she betray him by not understanding the political necessities that drove his actions? The consequences transformed Tyrion's character. After killing Shae and his father, he fled to Essos, became a drunk, and eventually found new purpose with Daenerys Targaryen. But the shadow of what he'd done to the woman he loved never fully left him, influencing his later relationships and his increasing cynicism about love and loyalty. This betrayal stands as one of the most morally complex in the series. Unlike many other betrayals driven by ambition or revenge, this one stemmed from love twisted by circumstance, misunderstanding, and the brutal realities of Westerosi politics. It showed that even the most intimate relationships weren't safe from the Game of Thrones. Melisandre's betrayal of Stannis Baratheon. The Lord of Light made good on his promise. With these words, Melisandre justified the sacrifice of Shireen Baratheon, Stannis' only child and heir. After years of promising Stannis victory through the power of the Lord of Light, Melisandre convinced him to burn his daughter alive to ensure victory against the Boltons. This betrayal was particularly insidious because it came disguised as religious devotion. Melisandre truly believed in her visions and the power of king's blood. But her interpretation of these visions led Stannis down a path of increasingly desperate and horrific actions, culminating in filicide, the murder of his own child. What makes this betrayal devastating is how it destroyed Stannis from within. The man who once said, "What is the life of one bastard boy against a kingdom?" when considering sacrificing Gendry, found himself applying the same cold logic to his beloved daughter. By the time he realized the futility of this sacrifice, with half his army deserting and his wife hanging herself, it was too late. The consequences were swift and absolute. Stannis' remaining forces were crushed by the Boltons. He died alone, defeated, and abandoned by the very priestess who had promised him the throne. And Melisandre herself was left to confront the possibility that she had misinterpreted her visions all along, leading to a crisis of faith. This betrayal perfectly illustrates how fanaticism can be more dangerous than malice. Melisandre didn't betray Stannis out of personal gain or hatred. She betrayed him out of absolute conviction in her beliefs. Her certainty made her more dangerous than any schemer, showing how even good intentions can lead to monstrous acts when divorced from moral constraints. Daenerys' betrayal of King's Landing. They don't get to choose. With these chilling words, Daenerys Targaryen revealed her true perspective on the people she claimed to be liberating. After the city had surrendered and the bells had rung, Daenerys made the shocking decision to burn King's Landing anyway, killing countless innocent civilians in a devastating display of fire and blood. This betrayal wasn't just of her enemies, but of her own stated principles. Throughout the series, Daenerys had positioned herself as a breaker of chains, a liberator who fought for the common people against their oppressors. Her decision to indiscriminately slaughter the very people she claimed to be saving represented the ultimate betrayal of her own identity. What makes this betrayal so devastating is its scale and unexpectedness. Unlike many other betrayals that affected individual characters or families, this one resulted in the destruction of an entire city. And it came from a character many viewers had championed as a hero for 7 seasons, forcing a reevaluation of her entire journey. The consequences were immediate and far-reaching. Jon Snow, unable to support a queen who would commit such atrocities, assassinated Daenerys. The Iron Throne was destroyed, and a new system of governance was established, breaking the wheel in a way Daenerys had talked about but failed to achieve herself. This betrayal serves as the series' final statement on power and its corrupting influence. Daenerys' transformation from liberator to tyrant wasn't sudden but gradual, the culmination of years of being rewarded for solving problems with fire and blood. Her final betrayal forced viewers to confront uncomfortable questions about how easily justice can become vengeance, and liberation can become domination. These 8 betrayals defined Game of Thrones, showing how trust, once broken, can never truly be restored. From the intimate betrayal of lovers to the mass betrayal of entire populations, these moments shocked viewers and changed the course of the story in ways no battle ever could. What makes Game of Thrones betrayals so compelling isn't just their shock value, but their complexity. Few characters betray others out of pure malice. Most act from a complex mix of self-preservation, ambition, misguided loyalty, or even love. This moral complexity forces us to question not just who betrayed whom, but whether we might have made the same choices in their position. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Game of Thrones' greatest betrayals, hit that like button and subscribe to Explainified for more deep dives into your favorite shows. Let me know in the comments which betrayal you found most shocking, or if there's another aspect of Game of Thrones you'd like me to explain next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.